So what Lama Tsongkhapa says is, so we think, right? Okay, ordinarily I have this grasping at permanence, but the reality is I may die today. And what Lama Tsongkhapa says is, at that point, it's actually useful psychologically, to actually say to yourself, all right, I will die today. And then he says, he points out, Lama Tsongkhapa says, if you're wrong, great. You'll have prepared well and lived a good day. And if you're right, at least you'll have prepared. So he says, you can start by thinking, I may die today, but he says there's psychologically something useful, even to say, I will die today. Not that one knows for certain one will die today, but he says there's something that it shifts your mind a little bit. So he advises that psychologically. And so you can imagine then, right? So let's do it, so we contemplate, right? So, let's try to imagine it this way, right? So, this evening, right, at 5:24, I'm going to die. So you can actually think, where do I think I'll be at 5:24 this evening? What are my plans, or what do I imagine I'll be doing? And so actually imagine yourself that you're doing that. If you're going to be, by yourself or with somebody else, at your home or out somewhere, take a moment to actually imagine yourself, right, being there. And you're doing whatever, with whatever attitude you'd be having at that moment. So whether you'd be enjoying yourself, or you'd be annoyed with somebody, or you'd be stressed out, or you'd be tired, or whatever, distracted. And whether you'd be sitting, standing. And then you imagine, so you're just doing your ordinary activity. This is me, right? I'm doing my ordinary activity. So we're each saying this to ourselves, right? That's me, I'm doing my ordinary activity. It's today. And suddenly I feel a weird sensation. Suddenly I feel kind of lightheaded and disoriented. I feel some pain. Maybe for a second or two I think it's nothing, it'll pass. I assume that, it'll pass. Because I grasp at permanence. But then it starts to get worse, right? All in a few seconds, but our mind works quickly in those kinds of moments. Right? So the pain, the disorientation, the lightheadedness becomes worse. And so then very quickly from thinking it'll pass, I go to thinking, oh my God, I have to tell somebody. I have to ask for help. But even as I go to speak, it gets worse and I can't speak. Maybe I take a step or two, or I lean in some direction for my phone, or towards the person there to try to say something. But before I know it, I either fall or slump over. My eyes close, never to open again. These eyes, at that moment, my eyes close, and I'll never see anything again with these eyes. From Tibetan Buddhist point of view, I'll describe the death process itself. Right? So my eyes no longer work, my body, there's a subjective experience of feeling extremely heavy, like I'm sinking, as my muscles kind of gradually stop working. There's a kind of inner vision, like a mirage, to my mind's eye. And internally I begin to become aware, oh no, I think I'm dying. I can just barely still move my body, but it takes huge effort. The body, you could say, it either feels very heavy or feels like it's sinking down into the earth. It's very difficult to move at all. Up to that point I could still hear, but then I start to notice that even my ability to hear is ceasing. And whatever is going on around me, that's the last sound these ears will ever hear. Say there's a kind of inner vision, almost like smoke. At this point, the mouth dries up. Can't see, I can't hear. I'm more acutely aware that I'm dying, and that I have I can no longer have any contact with other people. My ability to hear, to see them, to connect with them is disappearing. Now my body, laying there, begins to grow, even the heat begins to leave my body. So my body starts, first my extremities, gradually the body's growing cold. There's less circulation. The whole digestive system shuts down. The sense of smell ceases. I'm kind of vaguely aware of my organs shutting down. There's said to be a kind of inner vision like sparks or fireflies at this point. Imagine how one feels. How frightening that might be. How disorienting. How much one might want to connect to what's familiar. But one can't speak. One doesn't have any control over the body. One is aware of the body kind of closing off, closing down. At this point, one just becomes aware of one's breath, and that it's getting harder to breathe, that the out-breaths are growing longer, all the in-breaths grow shorter. One loses the ability even to sort of feel things tactily. If one hasn't practiced Dharma much, one might feel quite afraid, quite alone. It's said to be an inner vision at this point, like a candle or butter lamp. One is struggling, at that point one will be struggling to breathe. And finally there's an out-breath, and the body's no longer able to take any more in-breaths. So the breathing stops. At this point, one's own hearing, sight, touch have shut down, so one isn't aware of it. But outside, if there's anybody there, they're totally freaking out, shouting, "Oh my God, he or she's dead." Internally, when it stopped breathing, one's consciousness is still there. It's said that then arises a kind of vision, like a white light, or like space, but with a kind of white hue. At this point, one's whole personality, right, one's overt personality, one's temperament, one's sort of personality traits have all stopped. It's just a kind of subtle consciousness. Totally just if one isn't aware, if one hasn't practiced deep meditation, this kind of disorientation in connection with this kind of vast expanse of white light. It's said that next the white light kind of gives way to a reddish space-like appearance. And then that itself gives way to a kind of black darkness. There's no body, it's just a kind of sense of being in like a night sky with no clouds, and with no stars, and no lights. And one sinks into a kind of utter unconsciousness. And then next comes what's actually the moment of what Buddhism considers the actual moment of clear light of death, which is just this experience of kind of utter clarity, light, with no color, just like an autumn sky at dawn, before it's even really, that's not white, it's not blue, almost crystalline clarity, of kind of infinite spacious consciousness, clear light consciousness, the most subtle of all levels of consciousness. And then there's just the slightest sense of movement, and one arises in a kind of what they call the bardo body, kind of like a temporary ghost body. And so now we just imagine for a moment. So one leaves one's old body behind and just drifts away. So one imagines, how would I feel? In one moment, in one instant, everyone I knew, I've lost. I can't call anyone, I can't visit, I can't ask for help, I can't ask for guidance. I've lost my home, all my possessions in one moment, my car, my house, my money. I can't go home, I can't go to a hotel, I can't go visit a friend. That whole life I just led is dissolving, is gone. I can't go back to it at all. Any more than when I was alive I could go back into a dream after I woke up. And like it was a dream, I begin to even forget some of the details of that life. And gradually I'll forget the whole thing. And now my inner experience is like being in a dream from which I can't wake up, and will never wake, I won't wake up. But it's more unstable than a dream. With no place to go, no one to talk to. Just sort of blown by the winds of my good or bad karma towards higher or lower rebirths. All that comes with me, even my body is left behind. Even my personality is left behind. All that comes with me now is my karma and the mental predispositions I've cultivated. So if I've cultivated wisdom, if I've mainly spent my life cultivating wisdom, compassion, bodhicitta, love, then that's what goes with me. But if what I've mainly cultivated was attachment to comfort, to familiar people and things, or anger, or fear, or jealousy, then I'm utterly lost, utterly terrified. My own thoughts, like in dreams, just project all kinds of weird, disturbing appearances. And depending on what kind of karma I created, the winds of that karma will blow me towards some future existence. Some future appearance of a life. And that old life is gone, like an old dream, or like some movie that ended. I left the theater. It's just over. And just one last time, remember, right? So so at this point, right, I'm in this weird dream-like bardo intermediate state appearance. And all I have, all that comes with me, the only things that come with me are my karmas, my karma, and whatever habits or tendencies of mind I cultivate, whatever those mental habits are, whatever my karma is, those now direct me. Everything else is completely left behind. We can even take one last moment to look back over that life. From that perspective of the Bardo being, we look back at the perspective of that life that just ended. We can ask, so it's all over, it's gone like a dream. Was there anything of any value for me now in the Bardo? Was there any essence to that life? What was the essence? And what was meaningless? What mattered and what didn't matter? And take a moment to notice all the things that didn't matter. That when you were in the dream that was this life, they seemed important. But now looking back from this intermediate state, they didn't matter much at all. My job was like the job of a dream, the job in a dream. My relationships were like the relationships in a dream. My arguments and fights were like the arguments and fights in a dream. My possessions were like dream possessions. So from this perspective, what still has meaning? And so we can conclude this meditation by resolving, right? So then, since I may die, or wow, I'm still alive. It's amazing. I may die tonight. So may I use this day, each moment of this day, each minute, each hour, in the most meaningful way. In a way that even from that Bardo perspective, I'll look back and be pleased and feel a sense of meaning, a sense of purpose, a sense of joy at how I use this day. May I use this day in the most deeply meaningful way. In a way that even from that perspective of death has profound, powerful, wonderful meaning. May I take its essence, the essence of each minute. From now until the moment of my death, may I be like that. May I take the essence of each moment, of each minute, of each hour, of each minute. May I take its essence. So that from that perspective of the intermediate state or of death, I don't have regrets, but I have joy.